Alright, so this is a basic tutorial on completing the square when trying to solve quadratic equations. And completing the square, again, it's kind of like this idea that we want to manipulate the problem and make it ideal for us. So we can actually rearrange the equation so that we can have the ideal conditions. Now, by ideal, what do I mean? What I mean is we're always trying to make a perfect square trinomial. And if you don't remember what perfect square trinomials are, this is actually a great example of one right here, x squared plus 4x plus 4. A perfect square trinomial, here's its definition. If I were to divide b, which is positive 4, by 2, if I divide 4 by 2, it equals 2. What's 2 squared? It's 4. So if half of b squared is what c equals, then I have a perfect square trinomial. And this is how I write a perfect square trinomial if I factored it. It becomes, I take the square root of x squared, which is x. I copy the first operation, which is positive, and then take the square root of 4, which is 2. So x squared plus 4x plus 4, I can factor, because it's a perfect square trinomial, to x plus 2 squared. And again, if you wanted to check your work, I can rewrite x plus 2 squared to be x plus 2, and I can use a method that we call FOIL, and I can get it back to the original state it was, just to check my work. So, first terms, x times x is x squared, outside 2 times x is 2x, inside 2 times x is 2x, and last 2 times 2 is 4. And of course, we add the middle terms together, which would give us x squared plus 4x plus 4. So we have our original answer again because this is a perfect square trinomial. So let's go ahead and do an example where we have to make it a perfect square trinomial. So again, we're going to manipulate my problem and we're going to try to make it a perfect square trinomial. So let's check it out first. What's half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. What's 3 squared? 9. So I don't have a 9, I have a negative 8. So here's my first step when I do this problem. I'm going to add 8 to the other side. And so when I do that, it's going to create a gap. So I'm going to have x squared plus 6x plus something. Now, we want to make that something exactly what we want. So it wasn't negative 8, so I'm moving it over so I can have exactly what I want. And of course, on the other side of the equal sign, a plus 8 is 16. So what is the number that would make this a perfect square trinomial? Well, as I did on the right side, I'll do it again on the left. We want to take half of 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 3 squared is 9. So 9 is the ideal number we want to put in that spot, because then I have a perfect square trinomial. But of course, a good mathematician knows if we're dealing with equations, whatever you do to one side, you've got to do to the other side. So now, on the left, I have a perfect square trinomial. So I can write it like this. Take the square root of x squared, which gives me x. We copy the first operation, plus, and the square root of 9 is 3. So x plus 3 squared. And on the other side of the equal sign, 16 plus 9 is 25. Now, we need to solve. And how do I get rid of things that are squared? I do the opposite of a square, which is a square root. And if I take the square root of x plus 3 squared, I get x plus 3. Now, here's what's interesting about taking the square root of a number. If I add the square root myself, meaning I added it myself.
Please report to the front office. Bianca, Gaindo, please report to the front office.
Sorry about that. So if I take the square root of a number and I add the square root myself, I actually have to not only take the square root of the number, I need to write plus or minus 5. Okay? So if I take the square root myself, I have to add a plus or minus sign because a quadratic equation has 2 answers. So I have to write both plus and minus there because I have 2 different equations I need to make. So if I split it off, I'm going to have my first equation, x plus 3 equals positive 5, and my second equation is x plus 3 equals negative 5. And now I solve each equation. I subtract 3 from both sides, and I will get x equals 2 on that side. On the right, subtract 3, and I'll get x equals negative 8. So those are my 2 different answers, and that is the basics of completing the square.